Well, good morning, everybody. As we start this Thanksgiving week, we will be paying close attention to this map all week long. It's the National Weather Service's All Hazards Weather Map. County by county, they kind of highlight what the major risks are going to be. And it's going to change in color quite a bit by the end of this week. We're starting off with our winter weather risk pretty far to the north here, where there's winter storm watches and winter weather advisories stretching from Montana all the way to the UP of Michigan. We're going to keep an eye out later in the week on snow coming off the Great Lakes. This region in through here, which is right now dealing with dense fog, we're going to see possibly quite a variety of precipitation types, including some snow into this region. We do expect very strong winds in the Central Plains, Northern Plains this morning. There's still flood watches down across parts of Texas and Oklahoma, getting to Arkansas where there's some severe storms this morning. And what we're going to really pay close attention to is the evolution of the temperature pattern on this, which means we might start seeing those colors we haven't seen in a while, which represent the risk for prolonged, very cold air. The one spot that I think will not get much attention is going to be the west and northwest. The proximity of this larger ridge is going to just back things off a bit across that region. Now, thinking about this fog, I've just seen a lot of it here for the last week or so. I wanted to show you, this is what it looked like yesterday on Sunday. You can see some of the very dense valley fogs that stretch from parts of Missouri over to Kentucky. Again, more down here across the Delta. And this is the next low that's coming out. This is the one that's producing all the severe weather that we're going to be watching out for today here. And we're going to keep an eye on this one. But the fog, just something to talk about here. I often hear about, fog rules. Most folks will use the 90-day fog rule. I've heard people give me all sorts of different time lengths, from 2 weeks to half a year. And the reality is that when you think about the behavior of the atmosphere, what is this fog symbolizing? Well, one, we've brought the moisture up in this area. Okay, it was extremely low. We brought the moisture up recently. And what we've also done is we've seen some very large diurnal swings in temperatures, right? So in the afternoon, it's getting quite warm, but in the overnight hours, it's getting quite cold, and we're just dropping the temperatures off pretty far. Now, the whole idea of the fog rule, when do we get our most dense fogs, right? They're typically going to be in our more active weather months. I'm talking about, winter and spring. So partly, the 90-day fog rule, for example, is a self-fulfilling prophecy because most folks don't hold it exactly to 90 days. And the atmosphere, just so you know, doesn't necessarily have a memory. What I mean by that is it's not going, 90 days ago I had a fog, so it better make rain today. But it is something that you will find makes a lot of sense. If we're already bringing up the moisture in a specific area, that means there's going to be moisture available over the coming months to make more precipitation. And that's really more evident in the cold season. So let's just call that fall, winter, and early spring. All right, anyway, enough on that. Let's just kind of get through what we're going to be paying attention to here. We've got a couple of large systems moving across the country before the big one that I think you're going to have to pay close attention to getting toward the end of this Thanksgiving week. So over the last week, what's the story? The story has just been cut off lows, right? They do this, they come through, they move into this area and exit Mid-Atlantic. How many times did I have to say that last week, or Matt did as well? Some of the rainfall, hit areas that were extremely dry that needed it. But take a look at the southeast, or even just watch this whole region in through here where you're like, I see a little bit of moisture. But, you get north of I-80, we didn't get much. The interior of the Northwest was quite dry in this pattern as well. Now, for California, Arizona, much, much needed precipitation. In fact, look at the statistics now for month-to-date precipitation up to this point, right? So we got a couple of climate reporting districts in here having their top 5 wettest start to any November. Meanwhile, the southeast has been getting drier and drier. So is the lower Mississippi River Valley. The Great Lakes states have been very dry. Parts of the plains have been very dry. We've just been missing out on the right kind of flow to deliver the heaviest kinds of precipitation to just start to beat back on this drought situation. Now, I think that's going to change. I'll make a case for that here in a few moments. But here's the big story. We are about to see a massive shift in temperatures, right? This has been forecast now for a few weeks. This whole region is going to start to see just repeated days of sub-freezing air. And the soil is going to lock up, it's going to freeze. And that means a lot of what you see here, all right, is still going to be there by the time we get to spring. Until spring can undo these rains, or a really active freeze-thaw cycle that I'm not particularly foreseeing right now, that's going to be one region that's going to stay in drought. I'm still very concerned about the Golden Triangle of Montana. We talked quite a bit about that area and why it's been so dry there. And then look at this just region down here across the southeast getting toward the Mid-Atlantic, another region that just has to pick up some moisture. Because over the last 60 days, I've got a few places down there that are like 20-25% our normal precipitation. I mean, same thing for parts of like Wisconsin, Minnesota. You come back here throughout the plains, up against the foothills. There's just been some very, very dry regions across the country. All right, so here it is. This is the story, okay? Later on today, we're going to watch one system start its exit toward the north and east. This is the one that's going to be pulling on the Gulf moisture. We're going to see a severe weather setup right in through here. We have a second system, that's the low that's more clipper-like, that's moving along the northern tier of the U.S. That's our snowmaker for the north. And then a lot of you, I'm sure, have been seeing on whatever social media platform you like to use, all of the truly epic snowfall forecasts, right? And I'm just going to tell you something. The part of the jet stream that's initiating these huge Midwest storms that could produce lots and lots of snow, it's coming around the base of this trough right here, right now. That's how far away it is. What I'm trying to make a point here is that this particular piece of the atmosphere will be modified heavily as it comes through the Gulf of Alaska into the Northeast Pacific. It hits all the coastal ranges. I mean, do you understand how many mountain ranges this thing has to go over, in this region? Through basins, over mountains, modified, changed its trajectory before it emerges at some point as a system that comes into the midsection of the United States. And as a result, you're going to be, it's maddening to watch the day-to-day forecast models change. And I'm going to make a case of that just here in a few moments. But that's the setup. First, the winds. Take a look at these winds we're expecting in the plains. That's just through Wednesday morning. We're looking at wind gusts around Rapid City, 50, maybe 60 miles an hour. They stretch all the way over here to Chicago, this whole region. Extremely windy conditions. Also back in the Columbia Basin, Snake River Valley, even parts of Montana picking up on these stronger winds, as is Wyoming as well. But then with the big system, this is past Thanksgiving already. I've already moved you out there that far in the forecast. Watch the system that comes in that weekend. There it is. And that one's dipping. Some stronger winds are going to come all the way down into parts of Southern California, Arizona, New Mexico, and emerge in the southern plains, move all the way through the Midwest. So this is an active go of it. So here we go. This is the beginning. We have the next 3 days of severe weather risk, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and we're going to keep a very close eye in eastern Texas, Louisiana, toward the lower Mississippi Valley. That is also the area that has the greatest risk of the heaviest rainfall in the near term. It looks like this right now on radar. You can see some pretty nasty storms moving through this region, getting over the Red River here. Some spots that were missed last week did pick up some morning rain. I'm thinking about this region right in through here that needed it. And now we're watching these storms kind of move their way off toward the east. If we look at the lightning this morning, very active, just south of Tulsa all the way down to north of Austin, just kind of pinpointing a region in through here. Pretty substantial thunderstorms moving through this area. And the high-res NAM takes it like this. Ready? Playing through the middle of the day today. Widely scattered showers. All of this is just too warm, so there's still going to be all rain in this area through tonight. Our biggest storms line up right down here. Heavy rain moves into Missouri, southern Illinois. And while that's going on, take a look coming out of Montana into North Dakota, where the first round of colder air is finally settling in. We could be looking at some halfway decent snows in this area. We then watch that system exit to the northeast, so plenty of rain with this system coming into the northeast. The kicker system, that was the one on the backside. So our first one is here. The second one is now there. And that second system's got enough cold air on the backside of it to really bring some snow into Wisconsin, Michigan, and that's going to start the lake effect event. Now, after this, this isn't much for the West in late November, but there's just a system trying to work its way in there. But I wanted to show you, using the NAM model, how much snow we're expecting out of this. So just as something to think about, my color bar flips over to 4 inches to blue at 4 inches. So you can kind of see this swath in through here, according to the NAM, where you could be picking up a decent amount of snow, just a quick hit of it. Now, last week, that snow band was way up here. It was near the Yellowhead Highway going through Canada. And I'm bringing this up because we watched all week this storm track shift farther and farther to the south in the models. And I need you to remember that, because when I start to show you the new forecast, I want to make some sense out of why they're trending farther to the south. We've been getting asked a lot about how the model's been performing, so let's just talk about it right now. We still have the GFS with a disadvantage over the European model, about the same percentages as we talked about, 3 to 4%. Both models were at a good peak 2 weeks ago. They've kind of come down from that right now, so these models are not being really well initialized, but we're not having the major fallout that we've had in the past. But here we go. GFS left, European right. And if we play this forward, we've seen these two systems here. Models are okay at this point, seem to be pretty well aligned. See that? Now, what we're watching is Wednesday into Thursday. Now, there's the weak little low that comes in to the Pacific Northwest. See it? Told you, not much action in the Northwest for what they can get this time of year. While that's happening, lake effect going across the Great Lakes. This is 6 p.m. on Thanksgiving. So by the way, this is kind of your Thanksgiving evening forecast, just the snapshot of it here. The front has already cleared, so you can see that there. There's going to be plenty of cold air behind this, lake effect on this side, and this low that's moving into, into Washington State. Now what happens is after this, by the way, as we watch this play forward, that is the low that I showed you way back here is coming around the base of this trough. Okay, that's where we are in this forecast. All right, so now that low comes through. Now look at the model differences. If I'm in like the Midwest here and I see the GFS forecast versus the European, or if I'm in the Rocky Mountains, the foothills, major model differences already showing up by Saturday morning. And the forecast is going to take that low through. And my goodness, Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Ohio. The European model is just ripping off a massive, massive snow swath in through here. And it's following a very high pressure, which is born on Arctic air, which is cold. And by Sunday, this is noon on Sunday, the models are completely different in the timing and the progression of this. Do you see the difference? Look, the GFS has got a low coming through California. It's got another low that's sitting in through here, a big area of high pressure protecting the east. And it's got this much slower system, which is odd for the GFS. Usually the GFS is the fastest moving thing there is. It's got snow farther to the north, and the European's like, no. The low is already gone. There's low pressure up the East Coast, high pressure in the Central Plains, nothing coming through California. And that's what you're going to be dealing with. And you're going, well, which one is it, Eric? Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I think the European was a better initialized model at this point. But I could see, we can always do this, but I could find merits in both. But they are drastically different forecasts. That's next Monday morning. So what do you do with all this, right? What's the point? Well, I'm just going to tell you what I do. I only focus on the ensembles when this happens. I don't look at the individual model runs. Well, I look at them, but I'm like, okay, that's a mess. I look at the ensembles, and I want to do that with you here in a few moments because here's the crazy part. My son is going to wake up in probably an hour. He doesn't have school this week, so he's sleeping in, and he's going to come down and ask me, I guarantee it, about the snow. And I'm going to show him this map first because we're right there. That's our house. I put it 16.1 inches, 10-to-1 ratio on the ECMWF, and he is going to lose his mind because it's going to be this upcoming weekend, and he's going to ask me to take him sledding. I'm like, well, allow me to crush your dreams because here's the GFS forecast. He's going to go, what's the GFS? And I'm like, that's a U.S. model. It's our flagship model. It's a fantastic model, but it's putting all the snow way up here in parts of South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, parts of North Dakota as well, UP. Later evolving system. And he'll go, well, what else you got? And I say, well, we have artificial intelligence forecast models, but they tend to, in my opinion, kind of wash out the solution. They're lower resolution. They've got big snows in the Colorado Rockies. They've got a snow swath that rolls through here, some that comes into the plains, into the Midwest. But the biggest snows are going to stretch from northern Wisconsin through Ontario. And then we can blend them all up. This is the national blend of models, and you can see what it's forecasting. So my son has several options here. One model says 16 inches. One model says a half inch. The blend says 1.4. And let's just look at it again, 3.3 coming out of the AI model. So what will happen is, to get your eyeballs on social media, and I know I talk about this all the time, and I'm sorry, but they're going to post, people are just going to post to get as many views as they can. It's a money-making scheme, just so you're clear. They're going to post whatever's the most craziest snowfall model for your location. I'm just going to ask you to do this. On our website, the one we're building, which I'm hoping to release by the end of 2025, I'm going to show you how crazy these models are. Because I went in here to my backyard, Mahomet. I live in Mahomet, Illinois. There's the European model. There's this total amount of snow on Saturday. GFS, nothing. GraphCast, that is a artificial intelligence model, nothing. The AI model, look, there's your 2 to 3 inches on Saturday. The blend of models, a little bit coming through here. The GFS ensemble mean, 1.8, and then there's the European ensemble mean. So I've got all of the models just lined up so we can see what the chances are going to be. And we're going to be able to release this to you all in kind of this AgWeather Pro version very, very soon. But what did I tell you a few minutes ago, man? I focus so much on this, the Ensemble. So I'll look at the European Ensemble for you. This is through Wednesday, looking at the chance of getting 3 inches of snow. So there is the swath the model's picked up on. Now, you can put it down to 1 inch if you want. It's a much bigger area. But I want to look at who's getting that heavy snow. Now we're going to go through Thursday into Friday. So you see the swath extending into this area. In fact, we are looking at really good chances of at least 6 inches, maybe a couple of areas in here getting a foot of snow right there by midday on Thanksgiving. Got it? So that's our main corridor we're going to keep an eye on ahead of Thanksgiving. Now let's come back to the 3 inches. As we go into Friday, now remember, this is when the low is coming through here. It's going to squeeze its way before it exits, according to the European model. So what we have is Friday, Saturday. So you see it right there coming through. These are the probabilities beginning to increase. I'm just going to take this out there a full week. Let's actually go a little beyond that. Let's take you out to 10 days. There we go. And now you saw it. That's this weakened system coming through here. Look at the chances for snow in Montana. I want every inch of this for Montana given the drought situation. Coming down to the Central Rockies, the Southern Rockies need it. But if I just take this off, there's pretty clearly a corridor in through here where there's going to be enough cold air with probably the heaviest snows following that track or lake effect, and maybe right in through this area that we could get some really significant snow. Now, since we're here, how about the chances? 6 inches. So I don't know if you're in... we're Rochelle, Illinois, 50% chance back over toward the Quad Cities. Milwaukee, 50% chance of getting 6 inches of snow. Let's go up to 12. And then 18. There, look at that corridor. So we're just doing the best we can by using the ensembles because everything else is going to be a mess. Now, don't forget there's rain with this as well. So the probability of getting a full inch of liquid out of all of this is shown here. So I want to make a point that you saw that corridor of heaviest snow like right in through there, right? But remember, there's not as much water in snow because the atmosphere's ability to contain water, vapor, is dependent on temperature. So the colder it gets, the less moisture there is. So we know it's going to get cold. So I just want to point that out. But look at these rains down here. Now what concerns me is I've flipped this over to who's got the best chance of staying on the drier side of it. It's these same dry areas, especially down here in the southeast, even along the coastal parts of the Carolinas, getting up toward the mid-Atlantic. Take note that a lot of California is getting out of the flow. After being so wet lately, we're out of it. In the Canadian Prairie, with each of the kind of sinking storm tracks coming farther to the south, the Canadian Prairie is now significantly drier than even what I was thinking on Friday. All right? So, where do we take this? Well, you look over the next 15 days, the biggest piece of this pattern that I'm watching is this. We're just seeing that this Pacific high is trying to anchor itself into the, Northeast Pacific Gulf of Alaska, and I've questioned whether or not it's going to do this. Meanwhile, do you just see the troughs that are trying to live around from the Hudson Bay over to the North Atlantic? Like that's going to be another key piece of this forecast going forward because as you watch the kind of North American view of this, take a look. That's Friday, so that plenty of cold air on the backside of that trough coming around here, okay? But this is the real kicker. That right there. See this? When that jumps up into that region, look at it rebuild by December 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. As this happens, the concern is going to be the jet's going to come over the top of it, channel cold air along the Rockies, keeping it confined to this region, while this protective, Caribbean ridge may set up an extremely active corridor in the atmosphere right where all this gets sandwiched. We might also see some additional lows coming out of California with this pattern. If someone's drier, it's going to be here, and it's likely going to be in through there. That's our two drier sectors in this particular setup in the flow. So you can start to see that here. If you look at the European model, okay, there's the drier one. You're going, wait, you just shaded in here. I know, I did. I still think that this is probably too wet in the models, but not down here, and certainly not where the flow is going to get squeezed in through this area as we go out into week 2, which is December 2nd through December 8th, okay? Now, from there, what about getting out there farther? Well, the CPC forecast, which was released on Friday, has a very interesting kind of look to this, and I wish I could have sat in the room and listened to these folks talk through this because I don't quite see it in the same way. I would actually see this area not having the risk of above average precipitation, and I wouldn't have this below. But some of my reasoning for that is coming from other models and just where the pattern's currently getting set up. So let's just do this together. This is a 1-month sliding window, which starts today and goes to December 23rd. And as I move it, you're just going to slide it forward with me. So, for example, this would be the entire month of December. Now, can you tell where that ridge is going to be? And you see how it's really kind of robbing some of our coastal ranges here in the Sierra Nevada from snow? But it's got this wetter. I'm telling you, you've got to get clippers out of it for this to occur. And then you got to have the Bermuda high here to open this up. And there's some chances that that's going to happen. But as we get farther out, there you go. I don't know. Let's take it all the way to January the 8th. This would be December 8th to January 8th. That Pacific high, if it keeps moving farther to the north, brings more of the west back into play. I think that's going to be most critical to watch going forward. Now, all of this is going to affect the temperature pattern too, which so far in the month of November has been just wildly warm across much of the western half of North America, while we've been colder than average in the northeast. But our frost risk over the next 7 days, you know the cold air is coming through, and we're going to dip that frost pretty far into the south here with these colder temperatures. It's not today, though. Look at Monday's max temperatures, very mild across much of the country. Tuesday, though, see the colder air sinking in here? There's Wednesday, the first push. This is honestly our first push of cold air in a while here. By Thursday morning, very, very cold morning here across much of the eastern half of the country, while the west goes over quite mild. Again, keeping those statistics on the higher side of average. That's Friday morning, Saturday morning, Sunday. Look at that. Now that's the big push. Now, as we look out at it, you could go to the AgWeather website and look at any weather model you want. Please do it, okay? But I want to show you Minneapolis because I want to compare Minneapolis to St. Louis. They're both on the Mississippi River, and I want you to see this. Okay, so here's the warmth now, then the first big push of colder air, and then the second big push of colder air. That's now, if you look at the time, this is early December 2nd, 3rd, 4th. And then it kind of bounces up a little bit and goes forward. But each of the models here, European model, GFS, AI model, and another AI model called GraphCast, kind of shows a lot of spread out here. But if you come down to St. Louis, look at this. You've got the GFS and the GraphCast, which is a version of the GFS doing that. And the European model is diving. But the AI model from the Europeans, that's this one, is actually following the others. So what am I trying to say here? We have a pretty good idea on the cold air anchoring in the northern tier of the United States. But if you are south of I-70 as an example, I don't think it's going to be settled at all. It's going to fluctuate, and one model might say one thing and another model might say another thing. Because if you look at these forecasts, do you kind of see that right here there seems to be a boundary in every one of them? Now, maybe not the GFS, that pushes it pretty far to the south, but I think what's going to happen is wherever that little that sizable protective ridge sits, right in between their highly variable temperature forecast. So don't settle on any one model. Much, much better agreement with the cold that's going to be here. And day 5 through 10, day 10 through 15, that is the finish to November and the first several days here, first week and a half of December looking pretty cold. And the CPC, I actually do agree with this, which is funny because the precip map doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but this one does. I do think that this is going to be the case going forward. And if you look out here at kind of a 1 week sliding window, starting at week 3, getting into week 4, look, it looks quite similar. And then you go out there to the week of Christmas, there it is, and to start the new year. We've got a lot of cold air that's in place. Now, what I want to do is I want to make a case for this as to why I think most of North America, especially the northern half of the country, is going to be seeing frequent cold air intrusions. About the only spot I think is going to miss a lot of this is going to be where I just circled there across the south. The first thing is what's going on with the polar vortex. There it is. It's a complete mess. If you don't know what I'm talking about or what any of us are talking about when we say the polar vortex is a mess, this is what it looks like when it's closer to normal. It's like a donut sitting right over the Arctic. Now that was earlier this year on January 31st. It looked pretty good. It's all a mess right now. And we've seen these forecasts, which right now have it extremely weak. So the average line, the typical envelope is here. There's average. We do expect this thing to regain some of its strength, but it is already perturbed and it's a mess, which means we think that the polar vortex may have a tendency to do this a lot this winter. We then have this, and I hope you find this fascinating. This is where the best rising motion is on the planet. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you a forecast that started way back here. This was way back at the beginning of November. And I'm going to play forward so you can see how it changed. Now, what I'm watching here as we go forward in time is a couple of things. Remember, the blue-greens are where there's rising motion. Did you see how the models didn't have that forecast well earlier? Watch. Well, let me go back and show it to you. Look. We go back to early November. I mean, where was it? I didn't see it. There's something down here, but it's not really clear. It's as you got closer and closer to the time frame, the models got better and better, picking it out, like right there. Or then as we get to the current time period. So what is this? This is what we call a Kelvin wave, a convectively coupled Kelvin wave. It's moving quickly. It's part of the MJO. Now, you know that I like watching these things, but I'm more interested in this. Now, you remember last couple of weeks I said, if we see sinking motion moving over into this area, see it lined up? That means you're going to have rising motion here, and you're going to have rising motion there. So the atmosphere is pressing down on this spot, and it's going to rise here and rise there. And going, okay, make a point, Snodgrass. Well, the point is, when that particular bit of sinking motion, which is very well resolved in the model right now, sets up, that's MJO phase 8-1, okay? That means that we could get a lot of sinking motion in this area. And I'm so sorry. You're going to get a lot of sinking motion in this area, which gives us rising motion in that area. You're going, all right, you're just drawing on an ugly map. I know, but what historically happens is that these are our colder phases of the MJO, and these are our warmer phases for most of North America. So that's why when I see this, I'm concerned about West Coast warm, West Coast dry, midsection of the country into the Northeast, locked into some pretty consistent cold. See it this way, okay? Why West Coast warm and dry? Well, do you see there's look at the reds, general ridging here with deep troughs there. And guess what? Southeast ridges are just off the coast there. So there's lows here. There's, a high pressure cell there and a big high pressure cell here. Now listen, I know I mentioned West Coast high pressure, but if this keeps moving farther and farther toward Alaska, West Coast, you're back in business. You'll get it. And what we're thinking about here is this. Now, the models picked up on that thing right there. Remember how I showed you this several times in a row? That's the trough that we expect to live right there. Look at the bottom of your screen, okay? But that we expected that from like the 25th through the 8th, and it is still there, okay? But take a look at what we've now seen evolve in the models. It kind of looks something like that. We've now seen that the atmosphere seems to, according to the European model, want to drop a broader trough into this whole area of North America, getting into North Atlantic, going through much of December. And if you're on the back side of that, that is going to be open access to cold air. There's a ridge right in through here and there. Now, where's that ridge? Well, the farther we can move it in this direction, in other words, if these contour lines keep moving here, then we're going to really set this up for cold air east and better flow into the west. And all of this is happening while our La Nina is probably at peak and starting to fade. And I think that is really going to be the setup for later on this year. The MJO, where is it going to live? Because if the La Nina was still going hardcore, the MJO would live here. That's where your rising motion would be. You'd have sinking motion there and sinking motion here. Okay? Got it? What's happening, though, is that the La Nina has made this push, and now the Indian Ocean Dipole, which has been pushing against it, is gone. And so what it's going to do is it's going to run through its phases. It's going to allow that big convectively coupled wave to go. And what we think might happen in about, 3 weeks' time is that this area is where the sinking is, and the rising begins to come over here and over there. And that is phase 1, and that is phase 8. Colder phases. Got it? All right. I know that was a lot, but that's what I'm thinking about. Now, how about a little model verification for South America? This is what the last month, well, let me rephrase it. This is what October 16th and November 15th looked like in terms of precipitation. And I save these maps every day, at least I try to compare. So look at this. The GFS forecast model for the time period of October 15th to November 15th was very dry here. European, normal or wetter. See that? Look at that. This is what happened. Drier. That's a big vote of confidence for the GFS subseasonal. Get it? Like that's my point. What about lately? This is another view of it. This is just the full last month, right? So now we're going October 24th to November 22nd, so up until late last week. Notice that we were drier here, wetter in Parna, wetter in Argentina. What did the models say? Like, look, they were all dry down here, and it's not been dry. It's huge for the winter wheat crop that's down there. GFS was dry here. European was wet there. And, it's super wet here. And did any of that happen? This is terrible. These forecasts are terrible for South America right now. So let's look at them, okay? I told you I gave a vote of confidence to the GFS. It's like, you know what? Let's go really dry for pretty much everybody. Unless you're over here in like Bahia or Minas Gerais over here. A little bit of Goiás. And the European model, can you guess what it's going to do? It's like, no, rain for everybody. Except for dryness down south. And right now, I'm telling you, don't trust any of it. Don't trust any of it. What I want to know is this. We have a peaking La Nina. So let's go in here and look at the multivariate INSO index, MEI, look in December, and just know what should happen. What we typically get when there is a La Nina is this area tends to be drier and this area tends to be wetter. That's what these colors mean. We know that the Antarctic Oscillation, the AAO, is also very negative right now. And that tends to give us drier conditions here and wetter into there. And we're kind of seeing that in some of the forecast models. But I'm just going to tell you, I have zero trust right now in these forecasts. I don't have any. So we just need to watch it day to day and see how things go and get progress reports for South America. All right, that's it for today. Thank you for listening to just all my cumulative thoughts from the weekend. We'll talk again soon. Matt will pick it up tomorrow morning, and I'll see you on Wednesday. Thanks.